Now, first up, as you know, the Prime Minister is on holidays with his family. I said earlier in the week that the vitriol directed his way over this is pretty nutty and nasty. There are Twitter warriors and angry journalists trying to make heroes of themselves by comparing his absence on a week's leave to the Victorian Police Commissioner disappearing from the control centre on Black Saturday to have dinner and talk with someone about her biography, when she was actually in charge of the operational response to fires that were a disaster, in the end killing 173 people. Morrison has no operational responsibility for bushfires in New South Wales. Attempts to call this heatwave and the fires a national crisis are just silly, as anyone who's been around this country for a few summers knows all too well. They are serious. This is a big problem, but you don't need to overinflate it as a national crisis. And clearly the attacks on Morrison and the deliberate hyperbole about the fires is driven by people trying to play climate change politics. People like the Greens.
The whole country is in the midst of an extreme weather week, extreme heat. Bushfires are raging still in New South Wales and WA, and we don't even know where the Prime Minister is. He's gone missing, he's gone on holidays, and he wasn't even prepared to be upfront with the Australian people about it.
Well, maybe it's about time that Senator Hanson-Young went away on holidays for a while. Using bushfires as a political weapon is pretty low, silly and opportunistic. But it's pretty typical of the Greens, don't you think? Which is why the Labor leader, Anthony Albanese, has been much more sensible.
I'm not going to be critical of Mr Morrison personally in terms of his circumstances of taking leave with his family. I'm not going to do that. That would be cheap politics, and I'm not into that. I'm into the issues, and the issues that count are a national response. It doesn't matter whether it's Mr Morrison or Michael McCormack. We're not seeing a proper response from this government.
Well, I don't know what he means about the proper response. The states run fire operations. The federal government's given them extra money for aerial equipment. The fire services say they've got all that they need. So Anthony Albanese did the right thing, not criticising Morrison about his holiday, but the stuff about the response is a bit weird. And just today, he seems to have changed his tune too, taking up a line on Twitter more in keeping with the Greens. Have a look at this tweet. He says, "While our country burns, people are choking, and it will only get worse." This is a national crisis, says Anthony Albanese. It demands a national response, and it's time for Scott Morrison to show leadership and do his job. Well, again, that's pretty over the top, isn't it? The Prime Minister needs to put out the fires now. Perhaps the acting Prime Minister could do that job. Just what is it that the opposition leader says the Prime Minister can do to cool the heatwave or put out the fires? We do face a serious bushfire threat. People's lives and homes are threatened. As a nation, we've always dealt with this stuff in a stoic and determined way, even though we know sometimes that fires are simply unstoppable and getting out of their path is the only thing we can do. But now the bushfire has just become another excuse for leftist abuse of their political enemies. It's time to worry about the direction of our national debate.